right, first and foremost, all praise, glory, and honor goes directly to the Most High, whose true and set-apart name is YAHUAH. Yes, that meaning the eternal one, or the self-existent one in our Hebrew or Abri language. I also want to say shalom, shalom to my people out there who are taking the time to listen right now. I'm one of the children of the Most High, and this series is called Law and Wellness, a Spiritual Exam. It's a 3-part series. Now, the reason I worked on this is because when it comes to our physical health, right, many people struggle with staying on top of it, staying in tune with what's going on with their physical body on a medical level, right? So they often will put off examinations for as long as they like. However, when it comes to our spiritual health, we cannot afford to be that lax. In fact, we have to be proactive with our spiritual wellness. We actually have to examine ourselves on a daily basis to make sure we are in good spiritual standing. Now, another point that I have to emphasize is that we are dealing with the law here. That means the law is not done away with. And you're going to find that as we move through this series. Because, in fact, in order to reach spiritual wellness, we have to follow the laws that the Most High gave us to get there. See, many people have fallen under that mindset that the law is done away with, not having the understanding as to what the text found within the scriptures and within the epistles that were written by writers like Shaul or Paul. They often misinterpret what's being said there. And they then say, well, you know, the Messiah, he fulfilled the law, so we no longer have to do that. He fulfilled the law of animal sacrifice. He fulfilled the law of sacrifice, blood shedding for our people for atonement. So we no longer need to sacrifice animals for that. However, the laws that the Most High gave us to govern ourselves are still in full effect. In fact, people who think the Messiah did away with the law, that's like saying, well, because he lived, a perfect life, he had a perfect regimen, he had a perfect diet, he had a perfect way of doing things, he exercised perfectly, I don't need to do that to take care of myself because he did it. So I'm just going to bask in the fact that he was successful with that. That doesn't make sense. So it's more accurate to look and to say, well, the Messiah, Yahusha, whose name means the salvation of Yahuwah, Amasya, his title being the Messiah, actually set the perfect example for us to follow. And he kept the laws, the ways of the Most High, so we are to do the same. We are to follow in his footsteps. We have to live how he lived. And people have fallen away from that. Now, the other thing I want us to focus on, I'm going to be speaking on a couple of different levels here. So I need you to listen very closely because we're going to deal with the idea of the spiritual wellness using the parallels that come through our medical wellness, right? Our physical wellness. But since we're dealing with the law, I also want us to consider some of the parallels that come through the court or legal system. All right? Now, these are going to help us get some wisdom and understanding as we move forward. Now, once again, we are dealing with the ears here, so I need us to pay very close attention. Now, the reason we're starting off this part one with the ears is because often when you go visit a physician's office, one of the first things they're going to do is check your eyes, your ears, and your throat, right? So we're going to start with the ears, and specifically because we need to be able to hear this truth, and I'm going to show you why it's so important. First, when we go to a physician's office, one of the first things we need to do before we get our checkup is write down what is our complaint for that visit to the office. Now, depending on what your complaint is, of course, the doctor is going to gather information to help get more detail. Now, I do want us to also consider on a court level. Before we bring a matter to the legal court system, there's usually a complaint filed. It's either a complaint that's filed against you or a complaint that you may be filing against another party. Either way, both of these systems usually work from a problem or a complaint that is put in place or concern that needs to be addressed. And that, as I said before, is not how we should work on the spiritual level. When it comes to spiritual wellness, we need to be proactive. We shouldn't wait for a complaint to come up in order for us to work on ourselves or to have ourselves examine ourselves regularly. All right? So just with that being said, this complaint form that you would fill out at the medical office gives the physician some information that they can start off with. But then they're going to ask you additional questions to pull more and more information, so that then once they've gotten their fill of information, they will then consult with their text, sort of the medical Bible, if you may call it that, the ICD-10. Which is basically the international classification or international statistical classification of diseases and health-related problems. So what this book contains in it is a guide to all the different medical diagnoses or classifications, the different symptoms, some of the different treatments, just information that they can then use to solidify what they may give as a diagnosis and what they may say is a prognosis or a treatment for a person to follow. All right. So knowing that this guide is there, that's on a physical medical level. And even if you deal with mental health, a psychiatrist is also a medical doctor. And when you come and bring your complaint to them, they're going to take that information and gather additional information, and they're going to consult with their Bible, which is the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That also has a list of disorders, different diagnostic criteria or symptoms, and some copies of the DSM have also included different treatment or different prognoses, or different summaries of other information related to diagnoses. So, as you can see, there's a pattern here. Now, if we're dealing with the legal court system, there's a parallel there as well. Because when a matter is brought or complaint is brought before the judge, in order for the judge to actually deal with the matter, they're going to also consult with their law book. That's their Bible. And that law book is usually going to be based or catered to whatever type of jurisdiction they are actually judging from. So if it's a state law or a federal law, or if it's dealing with other case scenarios, municipalities, if it's commercial law, whatever the judge is dealing with, they're going to use their text to support and guide their directions. So, of course, when it comes to those of us who are believers in the truth and in Scripture, when it comes to our spiritual wellness and we examining ourselves, we have to go to our text, which is the Scriptures. That's right. We all have to rely on our text, which has all of the information we'll need to make accurate assessments of ourselves. In fact, if you were to understand the nature of the Scriptures, you're going to find that the book known as the Bible is indeed a law book. Yes, that's why it is also referred to as basic instructions before leaving Earth, right? People have nicknamed it that. However, when you go look at the direction, the different diction that's used in Hebrew or Abri, the word Torah actually stands for law, direction, and instruction. And it's actually used often to describe the first 5 books of the Bible, which are the books of Moshe, the books where the law, the statutes, the commandments, the judgments are all detailed, right? But Torah also refers to the commandments, which also are found within the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible. Because the commandments, or the Decalogue, which means the 10 words, are all connected to the law. They're not separate. Many people have said, oh, well, we only need to follow the 10 commandments now. when you look at the law, you've got to understand that the 10 Commandments are just summaries, but the laws inform you how to keep the 10 Commandments. So they're all connected. They can't be separated or teased out, right? But with that being said, of course, this is the guide by which we are to live. The laws, the directions, the instructions that were given directly by the words of the Most High, which is why he gave us the forewarning that man cannot live by bread alone, but shall live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. Because what he says is law, and we live by it. All right? Very important for us to keep that in mind. The problem is many people can't hear Torah. They have dullness of hearing, a hearing condition where they cannot hear it. Now, some people won't hear it for different reasons. Some people are intolerant to Torah. So they can't take it in because they can't manage it. They can't handle it. And that can come for different reasons. If you look into their history, you may find that many of them are dealing with false doctrines that have actually interfered with their ability to actually digest the truth. Some people, are allergic to Torah, meaning, they have a bad reaction whenever the law is introduced. And so they don't want to come around it. They don't want to start to get used to being around it. Now, either way you put it, right, there are different diagnostic criteria that people can meet. Like I said, some people can't hear Torah. They have spiritual deafness. Some people can't see Torah. They have spiritual blindness. Some people do not speak Torah. They have spiritual muteness, right? Now, those who purposely avoid Torah or try to stay away from the law are Torah-phobic. It's a diagnosis, and it requires treatment because remember, you cannot reach spiritual wellness unless you are able to deal with, digest, and to live in Torah. It's extremely important. We have to keep the laws, the commandments, the statutes, the directives of the Most High in order to reach spiritual wellness. So we're going to get into this a little bit more just so you can see what I'm speaking of. But let's ask the question, can we hear sound doctrine? Can you hear sound doctrine? Now, often when people go to get their ears checked out, the doctors often would use this test where they would do a series of tones, and it would start off at a very low pitch, and people would let the doctor know when they are able to hear that tone as it gets turned up. Now, some people are able to hear the lowest frequency of tones. They have very, very astute hearing, where other people may take several increases in volume or pitches so that they can finally pick it up and say, yes, I hear that. That means they're dull of hearing. They're not as sharp of hearing. Now, in order to hear the Torah, we have to be sharp. We have to be in tune. The Most High made it that way for us because it's the standard of health. If anyone could just pick up Torah and hear it without having the ability to tune into it, then that means it would be easy. But in order to pick it up, we have to work towards optimal health. Now, we may hear certain parts of it, but to hear the deeper language of Torah or the law of the Most High, we have to get ourselves in tune. All right? Very important to do this. Now, why is it important? If we go to Proverbs chapter 28, verse 9. For those who do not want to hear about Torah, here's a warning. It says, he that turns away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. Now, the word law or the law there deals with Torah. If you go to the word it's translated from, it is Torah. So it's telling you, if you don't hear the law of the Most High or the Torah of the Most High, he's not hearing your prayer because your prayer is considered to be an abomination. So he's not accepting it. So for those who often feel, well, my prayers are getting answered and I'm not keeping the laws, so I'm fine, you're deceived. It's not that your prayers are being answered by the Most High showing you favor in that way, but we know that blessings fall on the just and the unjust. So you still need to examine yourself closely. Now, if we were to go to 2 Timothy chapter 4, we'll see that we were warned that this would happen to our people, that we would have this condition of hearing that we are dealing with now. In fact, it says, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. Now let's stop there for a second. Remember, YAHUAH Amasya, the Messiah, said that those who endure to the end shall be saved. This should ring a bell here that we should all hear. It says to endure sound doctrine. So this sound doctrine that we are to be able to endure is what was being talked about by the Messiah when he spoke about those who endure to the end shall be saved. And the reason you'll find that is because when you go into that passage, and I don't have the passage up right now, maybe I'll float it on the screen or something. He's talking about the law first. He was talking about what was going to happen to our people and how we were going to have false prophets come. But then he also talked about love growing cold because of lawlessness. And then he says those who endure to the end shall be saved. So this endurance deals with us being able to live in this sound doctrine, this truth, this law. Now I'm going to prove that because it goes on to say, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. So the truth is something that they were originally tuned into, but then they end up turning their ears away from it. Our people were given the law a long time ago by which we were to live. However, we fell away from that law. So could that be the truth that we were turning our ears away from today? Well, let's find some more evidence. Go to Psalms chapter 119, verse 142. We're going to find out that truth is defined. It says, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So we find that the truth is the law, because remember, it was laid out as a foundation as to which everything operates by. So when you know what the foundation is, then you know what the truth is. And the law is that truth. In fact, remember, I said there are some court or legal parallels here. Think about the word righteousness. And then when you go to court, you deal with your rights. You're usually going there to deal with a matter related to your rights or the violation of rights, right? Well, righteousness deals with that same concept because, see, the Most High gave us certain rights. The rights that he gave us to live by, those are considered to be righteousness. If we do anything unrighteous, then we are now violating the law and we are living unrighteously. So in order for us to stay in harmony with the Most High's righteousness, we have to stay in harmony with his laws. Extremely important for us to note that connection. Now, seeing that the law is the truth, we then know that when our people were told we were going to turn away our ears from the truth and start following fables, that means we were going to turn our ears away from that law, the instructions, the directions of the Most High, and start living in some delusion. Now, another thing we need to consider is this, is that the doctor will also usually ask us for a history of our health condition. In fact, they often ask for a family history. Now, if you're familiar with the fact that us being called Negroes today are actually Yasharites or Israelites described in Scripture, then you can go into the Scripture and see our history, and you'll find, yes, our family has a history of this problem. In fact, go into the book of Nehemiah, also known as Nehemiah, in chapter 9, verses 29 through 30, you're going to find that in speaking to the Most High about our people, it says, and testified against them, YAHUAH, that you, the Most High, might bring them back to your law. Wow. So we see we're dealing with coming back to the law, right? It says, yet they, the Israelites or YAHUAH, acted proudly and did not heed. See, we were not listening. Our ancestors had this same hearing condition. It says in your commandments, but sinned against your judgments and would not hear. So as you can see, this is through and through our family history. We had the same condition. Our ancestors had the same condition. They got passed down, hereditary. So we really need to treat this. Now, pay attention to the fact that the word law there in this passage comes from the Abri word Torah. Commandments, judgments. When you look at those words, law, commandments, judgments, and I said the legal court parallel should be there. So you understand then we are dealing with a court hearing. Excuse the play on words, I just had to do that. But we are indeed dealing with the fact that there is a hearing taking place where law, commandments, and judgments are being looked at. And we've got to understand this because remember, the Most High is a righteous judge. He's dealing with our rights, meaning as a righteous judge, he's dealing with a law. Because no judge can judge anyone without a law being in place from which they will judge. That's what makes him a just judge. He has a law. Now, seeing all this being put into place, I think the points should be coming together. But let's look at Amasya. Yes, Yahushua Hamashiach. Let's look at his ministry. If you go to the book of YAHUAH or John chapter 1 verse 14, you're going to find that it says, and the Word, something we can hear, the Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. Sound waves. Wow. The Word, something that we could hear, that was spoken, dwelt amongst us. So the Messiah actually embodied the living word of the Most High, the Torah of the Most High. In fact, if you go to Matthew chapter 5 verse 17, you're going to see that he made it clear, think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy but to fulfill. So many people still tend to say, well, no, he abolished the law, he did away with it because he fulfilled it. No, that would nullify what was just said here. The way that he fulfilled it was in several, or I should say countless ways, really. But I'll give you a couple examples. One way he fulfilled the law was we had a law called the Kinsman Redeemer Law. We still have that law in our book. When you find it in Leviticus chapter, I believe, 25, it deals with the fact that if one of our brethren went into captivity or bondage, I should say, and he was actually held as a slave to a foreigner, if we had the means to buy him back or redeem him from that foreign bondage, then we would go and do that. That was in our law to do. It was one of the things that we were compelled to do by the law the Most High gave us. It's a nation-building law. It was our way of keeping our brethren and our sisters free. And so he did that for us. Yahushua Hamashiach did that for us when we fell into the bondage of slavery to sin. And we actually now ended up in this diaspora across the world because we broke the law of our land, which led to us being scattered away from our land. We defiled our land, and you'll find that in the law as well. Leviticus chapter 18 talks about that. That he then came to redeem us according to his riches. See, you have the means to do it. That's why it talks about according to his riches and glory, right? So we've got to think about this connection because that's just one of many. I'll give you a second one. The Shabbat. Remember, the Shabbat day, we are not to carry heavy burdens. We are to rest unto the Most High Yahuwah. Now, when Yahusha came, he also brought rest with him. He embodied the Shabbat to us, because he said, "Come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He said, "My burden is light and my yoke is easy." See, he did that because he knew we needed the rest. Our people are under oppression. We are dealing with hardships. We are being oppressed not only by our physical conditions here, our mental health conditions, but we are also being oppressed by some of the doctrines that are tedious and yokes of burden upon us. We've got to understand this. See, so Yahusha came and brought us the truth, which set us free from that bondage. So this is how he was fulfilling law. Everything he did throughout his life, his death and his resurrection, his entire ministry was about fulfilling the laws that the Most High had given us. He set the example in real time for us. Now, keeping that in mind, we'll go to Romans chapter 10, where it says, "So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Amasya. But I ask, have they heard?" See, many people did not hear the word embodied in flesh because they didn't realize what he was doing. So even though he came and he lived it out, he practiced what he preached, they didn't hear his actions and they didn't hear his words. They totally missed the message. So we must hear that he was playing out law right in front of us. Now, if you know the law of the Most High, if you get familiar with what's in the Pentateuch or the first 5 books of Moshe, then you will understand the life and ministry of Yahusha, and then you can say you have truly heard him. But the thing is, people aren't hearing him. So therefore, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. How can we say we truly have the faith, or we're living in the faith, if we really never heard the word that was lived out by the Messiah? In fact, take a little further. Hebrews 11 verse 6 tells us, "And without faith, it's impossible to please the Most High." So we can't even have proper belief in the Most High if we don't know what his word really says. We believe in this image in our head that we have of the Most High because we haven't been familiar with his word, his laws, his commandments, his directives, the truth that he gave us to live by. This is why Yahusha said that the Father was seeking those to worship him in spirit and truth. See, because you can't worship the Most High falsely. You can't do your own thing. He told us since the day he brought us out of Egypt. I believe it's in maybe Exodus chapter 18, verse 3, or it should be in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 3. He told us we can't do the ways we were doing when we were in the land of Egypt. We had to now take on the laws and the directives that he gave us to live by. That's how we are to serve him and to worship him. Very important for us to note that. Now, I hope that has made sense to you, but just to conclude this, it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter." So we should be hearing this. "Fear Yahuwah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." Now see, commandments is a much broader statement because now it means everything he commanded us to do we need to be keeping. That's the whole duty of man. It's nothing else we should be doing out here but devoting ourselves wholly to the commandments of the Most High, Yahuwah. So think about that. With that being said, shalom, shalom. Thank you for giving me your ear. I want you to return to part 2 to see how we now can also gain some wisdom and understanding in dealing with the eyes.